Okay, so for these it says for each of the following, find all the zeros of the equation slash function by factoring. So every one of these we're going to need to factor. All right, so the first thing is in order to factor, we need to get everything on the left side of the equation. So here I'm going to do minus 18x minus 18x. So then I have 2x to the third minus 18x equals 0. You're going to look for a greatest common factor. So I say I can factor out a 2 and I can factor out an 8. So I'm sorry, 2 and an x, so 2x. And that's going to leave me x squared minus 9 equals 0. I notice that this is the difference of perfect squares. So in order to find the difference of perfect squares, you have to find what your a and your b is. Your a is x, your b is 3, and that's because the square root of 9 is 3, the square root of x squared is x. So I have 2x, and then x plus 3, x minus 3 equals 0. So my factors are 2x, x plus 3, x minus 3. Okay, then the next step is to find the zeros. Well, in order to find the zeros, I'm going to set each of these factors equal to 0. So I have 2x equals 0. Okay, so that's going to give me x equals 0. I have x plus 3 equals 0. Subtract 3 from both sides, so that gives me x equals negative 3. And then x minus 3 equals 0, so plus 3, so x equals 3. So my zeros are negative 3, 0, and 3. And we know that that's correct because I should have 3 solutions because the degree is 3, so negative 3, 0, and 3. All right, let's look at the next one. Okay, over here I see that this here is not all on the same side, so I'm going to move this over, minus 36, minus 36. So I have x to the fourth plus 5x squared minus 36. I'm going to look to see if there's anything I can factor out. There is not. Okay, so I'm going to look for numbers that multiply to 36, that add up to 5, and we can do that into the calculator. Okay, by going to y equals, I have negative 36 divided by x and negative 36 divided by x plus x. Go to your table. Okay, remember that the first two columns are the factors. Here is where I'm going to be looking for that positive 5. There's the positive 5. So x to the fourth. Remember, we're going to split that middle term, and that middle term has x squared with it. So x to the fourth minus 4x squared plus 9x squared minus 36 equals 0. Okay, and then we're going to group the first two together. I see that I can factor out an x squared, which leaves me x squared minus 4. And then here, I can factor out a 9, which leaves me x squared minus 4. So my factors are x squared minus 9, x squared minus 4. That's actually going to be x squared plus 9 because this is a positive 9. So then I notice here that this is the difference of perfect squares. So I'm going to have x plus 2, x minus 2. This are both perfect squares, but this is the sum of perfect squares. So we know that for our factors, there's not anything else I can do for that. So I've got x squared plus 9, x plus 2, x minus 2. So for these two factors, we could set them equal to 0 and easily see that x plus 2 equals 0 is going to give me x equals 2. X minus 2 equals 0 is going to give me x equals, it should be minus 2, positive 2. So my zeros are negative 2, positive 2. Okay, but then we still need to look at this x squared plus 9 equals 0. I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides. X squared equals negative 9. square root both sides. So that's going to give me x equals plus or minus the square root of -9. And we know that the square root of -9 is 3i, so x equals plus or minus 3i. So other factor is 3i and -3i. Okay, all right, let's go on to the next one. Again, we need to put this in standard form. So we're going to subtract 16. So x to the 4th minus 16 equals 0. This is the difference of perfect squares. So I have x squared plus 4, x squared minus 4 equals 0. I can't factor the first part, so I have to leave it x squared plus 4, and then x plus 2, x minus 2, because that's the difference of perfect squares. So those are my factors, x squared plus 4, x plus 2, x minus 2. We set each of those equal to 0 to get our zeros. X squared plus 4 equals 0, x plus 2 equals 0, x minus 2 equals 0. So plus 2 on both sides is going to give me x equals 2. Minus 2 on both sides is going to give me x equals -2. And then here we're going to minus the 4. X squared equals -4. Square root both sides. So that gives me plus or minus the square root of -4. Well, we know that the square root of -1 is I, and the square root of 4 is 2. So if x equals plus or minus 2i. So my zeros are -2, 2, 2i, and -2i. All right, let's look at the next one. So I have 9x squared minus 18x squared minus 4x plus 8. Okay, so because we have 4 terms, we're going to group those terms together. So I'm going to group these 2 terms, and I'm going to group these 2 terms. So looking here, I see I can factor out a 9x squared. And what's left on the inside is x minus 2. Here, I can factor out a -4. That's going to give me x minus 2. Okay, so notice here I have x minus 2 is one of my factors. And then I have 9x squared minus 4. Okay, x minus 2, I can't do anything with that, but the 9x minus 4, those are both perfect squares. So x minus 2 I'm just going to bring down, and then I have 3x plus 2, 3x minus 2. So those are going to be your factors. All right, and then for the zeros, we're going to set each of those equal to 0. So I have x minus 2 equals 0. So x equals 2. 3x plus 2 equals 0, minus 2 from both sides. 3x equals -2, divide by 3. X equals -2 over 3. And then we have 3x minus 2 equals 0, plus 2 on both sides divided by 3, so x equals 2 over 3. So my zeros are 2, -2 over 3, and +2 over 3. And you should, since there's x equals, since there's zeros. All right, let's look at the next one. Okay, we're going to look for greatest common factor. Is there anything I can factor out of this? And there is. I can factor out x squared. So I'm going to factor out x squared, and I have x squared plus 4x minus 5 equals 0. All right, so we're going to look here on the inside. So the x squared I'm going to leave out here. So x squared plus 4x minus 5. So because there's 3 terms, I want to look for factors of negative 5. So factors of negative 5 that add up to 4. So factors of negative 5 that add up to positive 4. See, negative 1 and 5. So my factors are x minus 1, x plus 5 equals 0. So those are my factors, x squared, x minus 1, x plus 5. And then to find the zeros, I'm going to set every one of those equal to 0 and then solve. So x squared equals 0. Means that there's a double root there, so x equals 0 and x equals 0. And then plus 1 on both sides, we have x equals 1, minus 5 on both sides, x equals negative 5. So my zeros are 0, 0, 1, negative 5. Alright, moving on. Alright, so it says 4x to the third minus 8x squared minus 15x plus 9. It says start with synthetic division given that x minus 3 is a factor of f of x. Okay, so we're going to use synthetic division. Hopefully you remember. So synthetic division, we have a factor here. I'm going to do the opposites sign, so that's negative 3, so I'm going to put a 3 on the outside. I'm going to put each of the coefficients, 4, negative 8, negative 15, and 9. Notice that these are already in order and there's no gaps. We go 3, 2, 1 and then no exponents. Okay. First we're going to bring down the first coefficient and we're going to multiply. 3 times 4, which is positive 12. Then you're going to add negative 8 plus 12, which is 4. Then you're going to multiply again. 3 times 4 is 12. Negative 15 plus 12 is negative 3. 3 times negative 3 is negative 9. 9 plus negative 9 is 0. So now we can write this as a trinomial. I have 4x squared plus 4x minus 3. Okay, because you're always going to start one less. So we were at a degree of 3, so we're going to start one less at a degree of 2. Now you need to continue to factor this. So this is going to equal 0. So we need to look for, and remember because we have a leading coefficient here, 4 times negative 3 is going to give me negative 12. So I want factors of negative 12 that add up to 4. So factors of negative 12 that add up to 4. All right, you go into the table. So we want it to add up to positive 4. Oops. So negative 2 and 6. All right, so when the next step for this is we're going to rewrite 4x squared. We're splitting the middle term here. So I have minus 2x plus 6x minus 3 equals 0. All right, and then we're going to group the first two together. 4x squared minus 2x, I could take out a 2x, which is going to leave me on the inside 2x minus 1. And then here for my 6x minus 3, I could take out a positive 3, which is going to leave me 2x minus 1 equals 0. So my two factors match. I have 2x minus 1, and then I have what's on the outside, 2x plus 3. So my factors are, they gave me 1, x minus 3, 2x minus 1, 2x plus 3. Now we need to set all of those equal to 0 so that we can find the zeros. I'm going to do that over here on this piece of paper. So I have x minus 3 equals 0, plus 3 on both sides, so x equals 3. 2x minus 1 equals 0, plus 1, 2x equals 1 divided by 2, x equals 1/2. And then the last one, 2x plus 3 equals 0, minus 3, 2x equals negative 3, divided by 2, x equals negative 3 over 2. So that's my last 0. Okay? So in order to do these, you really have to know how to factor. If you do not know how to factor, then you probably need to see your teacher after school, because this part's going to be pretty impossible on the test if you don't know how to factor already. All right, let's take a look. It says, what are all the x-intercepts of the function 16x cubed minus x? What are all the x-intercepts? Okay, well, in order to find the x-intercepts, you're going to factor. So we have 16x to the third minus x. So I can factor out an x here. So I have x, and then I have 16x squared minus 1. This is a different of perfect squares, so I have x, and then I have 4x plus 1, 4x minus 1. But in this example it says what are the x-intercepts of this function. So I have x equals 0. I have 4x plus 1 equals 0, minus 1, 4x equals negative 1 divided by 4, x equals negative 1 over 4. Okay. And then I have 4x minus 1 equals 0, plus 1, plus 1, 4x equals 1 divided by 4, x equals 1/4. Okay, so it says x-intercepts, and we know we list those in ordered pairs, so I have 0, 0, I have negative 1/4, 0, and I have 1/4, 0. Okay, we have x equals, and we know for our x-intercepts our y is always 0. Okay, what is another word for x-intercept? Okay, root is another word for x-intercept. Local maximum is not, vertex is not, domain is not. Okay, next one. Y equals 4x cubed minus 3x plus 2 has how many complex solutions? Well, we know that the number of complex solutions equals the degree of the function, so there are 3 complex solutions. Okay, number 44. Use division to show whether x minus 3 is a factor of 3x cubed minus 2x squared plus 3x minus 4. So in order to find out if something's a factor, you can use synthetic division. So remember, negative 3 is going to be positive on the inside. We're going to write each of the coefficients. 3, they're in order and nothing is skipped. So negative 2, 3, negative 4. Write the first one. Then you're going to multiply. 3 times 3 is 9. Negative 2 plus 9 is 7. 3 times 7 is 21. 21 plus 3 is 24. 3 times 24 is 72. Negative 4 plus 72 is 68. Because there is a remainder, this is not a factor. Okay, next one. Use division to show whether x minus 4 is a factor of x cubed minus 3x squared minus 4x. So same process. Okay, this is the factor is x minus 4, so I'm going to put positive 4 here, and then I'm going to list each of my coefficients. 1, negative 3, negative 4. Notice that there's no constant, so we're going to put a 0 here. You're going to write your first coefficient down and multiply. 4 times 1, which is 4. Negative 3 plus 4 is 1. 4 times 1 is 4. Negative 4 plus 4 is 0. 4 times 0 is 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. Remainder of 0, which means yes, x minus 4 is a factor. All right, let's look at the next one. Same process again. My factor is x plus 2, so I'm going to write 2 on the outside. Each of my coefficients, 1, 3, negative 10, negative 24. Write down my first coefficient, multiply. 2 times 1 is 2. So remember that the sign has to be opposite, so this should actually be negative 2. So negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. 3 plus negative 2 is positive 1. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Negative 10 plus negative 2 is negative 12. Negative 2 times negative 12 is positive 24. Negative 24 plus 24 is 0. So the remainder is 0, which means yes, x plus 2 is a factor. Let's go on to the next one. Okay, using division to find all the zeros of 3x cubed plus x squared minus 12x minus 4, one of the factors is x minus 2. Okay, so the first thing you want to do, since they gave us one of the factors, is to go ahead and use synthetic division to find the other factors. So I have 2 on the outside, and then I have 3, 1, negative 12, negative 4. You write your first coefficient down, then you're going to multiply, and then add. Multiply, and then add. Multiply, and then add. Okay, so we definitely know that that's one of our factors. So then we have left still this 3x squared plus 7x plus 2, because we started with x cubed, we factored out at x minus 2, so all I'm left is starting with x squared. Okay, you want to see if this can be factored. 3 times 2 is 6, so you're looking for factors of 6 that add up to positive 7. You could do that in the calculator. If not, you could do it by hand. 3x squared. I know that those two numbers are going to be plus 6x plus x plus 2, because 6 plus 1 is 7. Now we're going to group these. I can factor out a 3x here, so I have left x plus 2. There's nothing I need to factor out here, so just a 1 is on the outside. So x plus 2, my factors match. So I have 3x plus 1, x plus 2, and then our original factor up here, which they told us, which was x minus 2. The final step is you need to set all of those equal to 0. Get a little closer here. Okay, so I have 3x plus 1 equals 0. You do the algebra all night, you should get to x equals negative 1/3. We've got x plus 2 equals 0. So x equals negative 2. X minus 2 equals 0, so I have x equals 2. So my zeros are x equals negative 1/3, negative 2, 2. All right, let's take a look at the next one. Okay, so it says find all the zeros, divide x cubed minus 5x squared plus 6x by x minus 2. Okay, so we're going to use our synthetic division again. Opposite sign, so I'm going to put 2 on the outside here. And then I have 1, negative 5, 6, 0. And then bring down, 2 times 1 is 2. Negative 5 plus 2 is negative 3. Negative 6, 0, 0, 0. Okay, so that is a factor. Then I have left, so I started x cubed, so I'm going to go x squared minus 3x, and that's all I have left. So if I'm going to look at this piece right here, I know that I can factor out an x. So it's going to be x, and what's left on the x is x, inside is x minus 3. So my factors are x, x minus 3, and then our original factor, x minus 2. Set all those equal to 0, you should get x equals 0, 2, and 3. All right, next one, find all the zeros again. So the first step, since they gave us one of the factors, is to find, go ahead and factor out the x plus 3, and we can use synthetic division for that. So I have 3. Remember, this would be negative 3 because we're going to do the opposite sign. And then 1, 3, negative 2, negative 6. So we're going to multiply. And we're going to add, multiply, add, multiply, add. Okay, remainder of 0, so that is one of my factors. And then we're going to go through, I started with x cubed. So I'm going to go down 1, x squared. So 1x squared minus 0x minus 2. Well, that 0 times x is just 0, so that can simplify to x squared minus 2 equals 0. And then we can solve that. So plus 2, x squared equals 2. Take the square root of both sides. So x equals plus or minus 2. And then we also had our original factor, x plus 3 equals 0, minus 3, x equals 3. So my factors are x equals 3, the square root of 2, and negative square root of 2. All right, last two. Given each function and factor, use synthetic division to find all other factors. All right, so they give us a factor. We'll write that on the outside. Remember, do the opposite sign. I have 3, 2, 1, 0. So 1, negative 6, negative 13, 42. Write the first one down. So that's going to give me negative 3, negative 9. Multiply, positive 27. Add, 14. Multiply again, negative 42. Oops. 0. So no remainder, so then I have x squared minus 9x plus 14. Then you want to look, can I factor this any further? Are there factors of positive 14 that add up to negative 9? There are. Those factors are x minus 2, x minus 7. You can use the calculator to find that, which we've gone over 1,000 times, so I'm not going to do it again. And then we have our original x plus 3. Okay, so those are all our factors, and that's all it asks you to do. It says find the other factors, so you are done there. Okay, so let's take a look. The next one. Use division to show whether 2 is a 0 of. Okay, whether 2 is a 0. Notice I didn't give us the factor this time, so I'm going to put just the 2 on the outside. I don't need to change the sign. And then I have x to the 4th. Okay, so I'm going to put 2. Notice there's no x to the 3rd, which means I have to put a 0. X squared, which is negative 1. X, which is 1. And then our constant, which is negative 3. Okay? So all this one is asking is 2 is 0. So I'm going to bring down my first coefficient. 2 times 2 is 4. And then add. Keep going, multiplying. And then adding. Multiplying. and then adding, multiplying, and then adding. Notice there is a remainder. If there's a remainder, then 2 is not a 0. If there was no remainder, then 2 would have been a 0. And that is it.